Hey there, what is going on? It is Rob from Crypto Bobby, and today the markets are up and they're recovering from a broader market sell-off yesterday. So we're going to talk about why the market sold off, how it's recovered, where the best recoveries have been, and what you should potentially be looking at doing in the near future. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that. I also want to talk about Ethereum and long-term potential. There's some different comments made by Vitalik that I thought were really interesting in a Q&A, as well as Ethereum's highest transaction day ever happened yesterday. So what does that mean for Ethereum? What are some of the possibilities there? So if you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. I come out with a daily crypto video talking about pretty much everything that I can think of that has some relevancy, some value for you, hopefully, as well as I do a happy hour every once in a while where sit back, have some beers with a live stream with you, with all my subscribers. So that's been fantastic, and thank you if you already have subscribed. So getting into it, today the market has recovered nicely from yesterday's sell-off. That yesterday was led, I would say, by a sell-off within Bitcoin. Things were really kind of pushing the all-time high with Bitcoin at around the, as we can see here, around this $4,400 mark, and dropped all the way down to maybe $3,800 or so for Bitcoin. And as Bitcoin dropped, almost everything else followed suit. I'd say 70-75% of the coins followed suit. Specifically, Ethereum got hammered pretty good, dropping all the way from the $300 or so mark down to $268 at its low point, and then recovering in the $280-$285 range. So yesterday we had a somewhat broad sell-off between 1 and 2% to 10% for most coins. About 70% or so were down on the day. And when I was talking about things in my video yesterday, one of the big things I mentioned was, when a sell-off like this happens, if you have spare money, if you have money sitting on the sidelines, think about investing into it. Should you buy the dip? And it turns out yesterday you should have bought the dip if you had some money on the sidelines. If not, holding was a good idea yesterday because things have, for the most part, largely recovered. And the reason for that, in my opinion, being that there really wasn't a big reason for the market sell-off yesterday. There wasn't any type of major negative news that came out. There wasn't anything that really, in my opinion, drove the price down other than just a sell-off. There wasn't anything that really alarmed me as far as, hey, the price is going down and here's why. The price just really went down. And when that happens, I mean, granted, you're not always going to have some specific reason why the price is dropping precipitously, why things are happening. But if there isn't anything specifically that you can look to when you have some money on the sidelines, when you see a 5-10% dip for some of the coins that you have your eye on, whether it's something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, or if you're looking at getting in on one of these hot coins that has risen through the roof lately, like a Neo, like an OMG, like a 10x, whatever it might be, like an IOTA. A lot of these coins dipped yesterday, and yesterday presented a good buying opportunity for you to get involved in at lower price points. So rather than, I think a lot of times, the tendency is to, if you're holding or if you have a lot of money invested and then maybe you have some money on the sidelines, the tendency when you see that price dropping is, oh shit, now it's time to sell, it's going to drop further, it's going to drop further. And I'm sure a lot of people, especially when they were looking at something like Ethereum, which around the time Bitcoin dropped here, Ethereum dropped even damn further down all the way to that 268 mark. I'm sure when people saw that going from about 300 to 290 to 280 to 270, people pulled the trigger on sell orders, and now it's sitting back above 302. So it's the old joke, buy high, sell low. You bought a 300, you saw that price dropping to 270. Don't sell there. At least yesterday you shouldn't have. I mean, hindsight is always 20/20, but that's just one consideration, is that if there's nothing driving the broader market sell-off, it's maybe a better time just to buy in, to dollar cost average your way back in at a cheaper rate, because that there is not a guarantee that it's going to go down any further. Something to keep in mind as you continue to kind of evaluate new buying opportunities, new selling opportunities. Buy low, sell high. It is the dumbest phrase in all of investing, but it's so hard. It's the most common sense phrase in all investing, but it's so hard to do because when the market is, is rocketing through the roof and everybody else is talking about getting rich. You want to buy and you want to get rich with them. When the market is crashing and you see the money that you have going down 5, 10, 15, 20%, you want to sell because you're losing your money. It doesn't always work like that. It's counterintuitive in a lot of senses, but just keep that in mind during these dips, during these sell-offs. A lot of times the dips are not just, are not the opportunity to sell your coins. They're the opportunity to buy more and dollar cost average your way in at a better rate. So that is something to consider for you. Just looking at the charts from Ethereum as well as on Bitcoin. So Ethereum has had a pretty great day so far, really recovering nicely. Looking at GDAX here, all the way down to that low of 268 in the candle yesterday, that real long candle. Basically, the past 10 or 12 hour-long candles with Ethereum have all been green for the most part, which is signaling to me, somewhat nice recovery there, at least back to the 300 range that that Ethereum has been kind of hovering around for really the past week or so. The past maybe 7-8 days has been just kind of chilling at 300, gaining a little bit of maybe like support at 300, and it seems like a decent price. So when that price does dip, looks like the buying opportunities there are somewhat good for you. If it does dip below 300 again, I would certainly recommend maybe looking at evaluating picking up some Ethereum, because even if it doesn't moon in the near future, I think it looks like Ethereum is liking that kind of 300 or so range. And so if it does dip again, I would consider buying back into some and getting some more in your stack and my stack. That's kind of my thought process there. As far as Bitcoin goes, Bitcoin has also had somewhat of a nice recovery all the way from when it tried to push up to $4,500 or so, drop back down to the 3,800 mark, and now is recovering to the almost 4,200, 4,000, or almost 4,300 at this point in time. So Bitcoin is recovering nicely from its little bit of a dip, its correction yesterday. Ethereum has actually had somewhat of a stronger recovery. We're looking at Ethereum kind of back to its levels there. Litecoin lagging behind, and again, I talked about it a little bit on my live stream the other day. I know a lot of people have a good amount of investment within Litecoin. For me, it's not as attractive of a cryptocurrency to me, just because I don't think the vision is as grand as some other cryptos. I mean, from a technical standpoint, from a functionality standpoint, it might work just as well, as Bitcoin, maybe even better, being the light version of it. But I think from an overall like market macro perspective, Litecoin just doesn't have the appeal to me as some of the other cryptos out there, like Ethereum, like some of the ERC20 tokens, like Bitcoin. That's kind of the big papa in the crypto space. So that's kind of just my thought process on a little bit of the market movements within Ethereum, within Bitcoin, and Litecoin lagging behind the recovery, but also within the past maybe a couple hours or so, making a move back upwards in real time, really here, which is interesting to see as I'm watching this here. Outside of some of the kind of more established ones in the space today, the ones to look at are the ones that have made a nice recovery. Obviously, IOTA, Neo, Dash, and OMG. Kind of some of the big ones that have made a move. As far as getting into them now, I think kind of the valuations for all of them are a little bit maybe high, a little bit frothy. I am a holder on Neo. I'm a holder on OMG. At these levels right now, I'm probably not going to buy into them anymore. I would wait for a dip like yesterday. Me personally, I'd be waiting for a dip like yesterday. But if you are looking to get in, maybe you dollar cost average a little bit. Maybe you invest a little bit into Neo. If you're not in Neo, if you're not in OMG, maybe you or an IOTA, maybe you dip your toes in the water a little bit, maybe 30% of your investment in, just so you have a stake in it. And then if it takes a dip, if it takes a 5-10% dip, maybe invest the other 30% you wanted in, and then from there maybe invest another 40% if it takes another dip. That's kind of my thought process on that. Those coins are at pretty much all-time highs. Neo, IOTA, OMG. So something to consider when you are looking at it is ideally you're looking to buy on a day like yesterday, and maybe not as much on a day like today, where the market has had a pretty significant run back up. But if you really are antsy to get into the coins, I'd recommend putting a little bit in and saving a little bit to maybe buy at a dip at a later point in time. Outside of just the overall market happenings in today's recovery, which has been fantastic if you do have some money in crypto, a couple different things I wanted to talk to you specifically regarding Ethereum. So here's Ethereum's transaction chart, and yesterday was Tuesday, August 15th was actually the highest day in terms of total transactions on the Ethereum network with 413,000 transactions, which is pretty crazy to think that, 2 years ago or so, even really last year, you're looking at 41,000, 43,000 transactions. So Ethereum pretty much up 10x in terms of the transaction percentage, or 10x in terms of the number of transactions that are happening on the network. And I think that this goes to show it's a good sign for Ethereum that it's being utilized, that there's a lot of transactions happening on the network. I do know that there's some scaling issues, some things that have happened on the Ethereum network with things like the status ICO and the 10x ICO, and a lot of these ICOs that have happened where they clog up the network and make things a pain in the ass to transact money unless you're paying astronomical gas fees for to transact on the Ethereum network. However, I think as the scaling issues begin to be resolved, that's only going to speak better to Ethereum. And I know that there are some other currencies out there that are really specifically being built to have these really, really high transaction abilities, these transaction limits. However, even if they're able to do 1 billion transactions a day, even if they're able to run that, technically speaking, if users are only doing 10,000 transactions a day, does it really matter? So Ethereum, while it's somewhat pushing up its limit in terms of how many transactions can happen on the network, especially on some of these spiky days, like something with a big time ICO. The fact that these transactions are continually moving up in terms of the charts, I think it's a strong sign for Ethereum that the transactions are continuing to increase, and it's something that I'm looking at and keeping an eye on, because I think it's exciting to see that the more transactions that are happening, I think the more interest is in the space, and that's overall, I think, a beneficial sign to Ether as well. Now, one other thing I did want to touch base on was this Q&A that went on with Vitalik Buterin on Ethereum, and there was a lot of different questions, some really great questions, quite frankly. But one I thought was really interesting, and this was regarding the initial vision of Ethereum and how things have changed from the initial vision of Ethereum to where things are at now, and the 3 different points that Vitalik said that he didn't really expect was, number one, the initial vision was basically programmable money, essentially programmable money, almost like a Bitcoin with maybe a small programmable level on top of that, but that's migrated much toward this like world computer overall view. And then the other 2 points being the proof of stake and sharding roadmaps that have happened and really advanced extremely quickly, and how that could potentially impact Ethereum. And then lastly, the amount of institutional interest that has happened with Ethereum, and maybe why that's the case, and the participation within the community. So I really want to cover the 2 specific points, not necessarily the proof of stake and sharding roadmaps, technically speaking, but the vision from Ethereum transferring from programmable money to this world computer, I think, is what is so interesting about Ethereum and why there's so much potential for it to grow beyond, as far as things go, growing beyond a $28 billion market cap. I think there is a massive room and massive potential for Ethereum to continue to move and move upwards as the utility of the platform continues to grow. I think every single day people are finding new ways to leverage Ethereum, new ways to increase the utility of the platform as the technology continues to advance. There's just so many other things that are being done outside of Ethereum just being utilized as a cryptocurrency, and that's what interests me. I think that's what interests a lot of people as far as Ethereum goes, because it's not just a cryptocurrency. Granted, something like Bitcoin, for the most part, which really is just a true cryptocurrency, which is meant as a way to, for the most part, which is meant as a way to transact money between 2 parties, or which is a way to transact currency between 2 parties. Ethereum is a lot more, and there is room in the market for two, kind of different types of approaches. There is definitely room in the market for that. I think there's room in the market for Bitcoin. I think there's room in the market for Ethereum, even though a lot of people, clash, and it is what it is. But the fact that Ethereum is becoming somewhat of this world supercomputer where it can maybe in the future replicate what something like an Amazon Web Services or a Microsoft Azure is able to do. And I mean, when you're talking about something like Amazon Web Services, not that Ethereum is a revenue-based company or a for-profit company, but to give you an example of the size and scope of an AWS and Amazon Web Services, I mean, that specific business unit at Amazon does over $10 billion a year in revenue. That is incredible. That is a huge amount of revenue for a computing service, for storage service, for everything that Amazon Web Services does. So, not saying Ethereum is going to specifically challenge that, not saying that it's going to happen right away, but if Ethereum can replicate some of the functionality that something like an AWS has, in the future, if it can continue to advance its far out vision, then that could be really incredible to see. And then also going into the fact of the institutional interest coming into Ethereum. That is, in my opinion, it's huge. I know that's what's driven up the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance was something that really drove up the price of Ethereum, from maybe like the $40 range all the way up to the $400 range at a certain point in time. Having companies like Microsoft, having companies like JP Morgan Chase, having these massive, massive Fortune 500 companies experimenting with Ethereum and trying to build on the Ethereum blockchain, whether it's public or it's private, I think lends itself really well. Whether or not it's a public blockchain version of Ethereum or if it's a private blockchain, the fact that there are people out there and that there are Fortune 500 and startup companies that are dedicating resources, talented, highly paid software engineers, architects, developers, to the Ethereum, basically to the Ethereum blockchain, to the Ethereum protocol, to the platform, and increasing the investment, both monetary wise as well as human capital wise. The more talented people that are working on Ethereum, the more talented companies that are working on Ethereum, the more the utility is eventually going to be there, and that's ultimately something that I think is going to really benefit things in the long run. The more people that are building on top of the platform, there's a network effect, there's a snowball effect of just kind of the more and more things that are occurring on the Ethereum platform, on the Ethereum blockchain, the better off it's going to be. And then also I think the valuation of Ether itself is going to dramatically rise. So those are kind of my thought process on how the initial vision, or Vitalik's comments on the initial vision and the progression of Ethereum, and why that excites me in a lot of respect. Outside of that, I'll give some thoughts on a few different things. But lastly, I really just wanted to bring up my website and just show one of the kind of interesting things I wanted to put forward here. So I just put together a little bit of graph. If you haven't seen my website yet, it's pretty bare bones right now, but I put together, it's at cryptobobby.com. And if you want to see my portfolio, I'll link to it in the description here. But if you want to check out my portfolio, just in order to really provide transparency, I know a lot of people talk about, hey, you want to buy coins, you want to do this, you want to do that. So you have an idea of kind of where my investment is, where my mind is at, where I'm investing. This is my portfolio on a percentage basis for each coin, in comparison to basically the overall fiat total of my investments and the percentage of fiat that it's in that. So, for example, I have 15% Ethereum right now. For example, if I had $10,000, that's $1,500 of that is within Ethereum at this given point in time. So that's something that I wanted to put together just so you understand where the majority of my holdings are happening right now and kind of where my investments are at this point in time. And there's certain things you'll see here too, like some of my investments. I mean, I am somewhat heavy right now in Civic, which is one of the areas I'm heavy in, and it's not necessarily due to the fact that I put a lot of fiat into it. It's that I participated in the ICO and it's up 600% or so since the ICO. So I've just held on to it. I put it in a Ledger Nano S. I put it I basically put in a Ledger Nano S in the My Ether wallet, and I'm holding that for the long term just to see where that goes. And that's obviously risen quite a bit. So fiat wise, it's not a huge investment, but it wasn't a huge initial investment, but now it is. If I look at my portfolio in a USD perspective, I have a lot of USD dollars, dollars worth of Civic. And the same can be said for OMG as well as for Neo. But the one thing I'll point to as well, something like DNT right now, that's only about 6% of my portfolio. I got into it a few days ago, but that was kind of a 6% fiat investment as well. I basically bought it at its current price, so I haven't really made any gains there. And perhaps as I continue to look at areas where I can circle back investment in, I'll do that. But to give you some idea, guys, I'm going to update this as much as possible so that you can see what's going on with my mind, where I'm putting my investment. And this is really, like I said, it's for transparency purposes. I want to be as transparent as possible with you. This is not a channel where I'm telling you I want you to invest in this, you need to invest in this, or the next great pump and dump is this, and we're all going to hop on the train and we're going to participate in this fantastic pump and dump, and we're going to kill it, and we're going to make millions on chain coin. That is not at all what I'm saying. I just want to show you, hey, look, this is where I am. This is where my money's at. So if you're basically watching my videos and trying to think how I might be affected by where my money's at or whatever it might be, you have a good understanding of it here because I'm being completely transparent with this, so and then I will, like I said, I'm going to update this on a consistent basis as these percentages continue to change, so you can fully understand that there. Now, outside of this as well, if you are new to the channel, I would really, like I said before, love a subscribe. That would be so fantastic for you to join me on this channel. And if you're listening to the podcast, that would be awesome as well. And check out the website. It's pretty bare bones now, but I'm trying to advance it as things go, put some more content on it, just to make this a useful hub if there's any information that you want regarding kind of what I'm thinking from a crypto space. Thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure to speak with you. If you are buying, if you're holding, if you're selling, whatever you're doing in the crypto space, definitely here to try to support you on your journey and provide as much helpful advice as possible. If you have any questions, please feel free to sound off in the comments. Always there to answer the positive ones, the negative ones. I see you guys. Always there to answer everything that I can and trying to help out and be as helpful as humanly possible. Like I said, I'm learning as I go. I'm trying to make this a better channel, a more useful channel. So I appreciate everybody's support. Rob from Crypto Bobby signing out for the day. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have an awesome one. Peace.